lots of early career training opportunities. We also provide funding on occasion for travel. 2 of you in this audience, where are you? Please stand up. Are here in part thanks to the support from our capacity building education and training workshop, because Jose asked us to. So he's one of the members of that group. So that's how all of this sort of feeds together. We also have, we do an outreach session at our major conferences. We're in some early stages of collaboration with PEI. And we've also recently added a new award to the SCAR scheme. They have 2 awards already, one for research excellence, one for international coordination. And in 2018, we will be debuting the new Capacity Building and Education Award. So that's a huge achievement for education and outreach, and those of you who have been involved in pushing that through the IPY know just how great that is. So that's the green light. Sometimes, however, we're at a red light, and there's things that we can't do because we still need to pay the bills, but we can't do what we dream of. And what would happen if the world was our oyster and we could do what we wanted to and our resources were unlimited? A few things that I would do. There's this wonderful resource called the Polar Resource Book. Are you planning to discuss that this week, I hope? Okay. So I won't go into this too much, but it was produced during the International Polar Year, and it's full of wonderful classroom activities that were designed by teachers and vetted by scientists, and it's this amazing product. Unfortunately, it's out of print now, and I think there's some opportunities there that we can revive it, because what I would like to see is that the Polar Resource Book would be just as popular as the Bibles in the hotel rooms. Give me the green light for that. The other thing that a number of us have been talking about for a while is matchmaking, and I'm not sure how many are familiar with Match.com, but it tries to pair up couples in these wonderful, happy, lifetime-long relationships. And when I moved to Norway, to Tromsø, Norway in the Arctic, I was not having too much luck in the dating scene. So some of my friends convinced me to join Match. I was extremely skeptical. I'm just skeptical of those things. And even more so, in Norway, the address is NO, Match.com. No Match.com. Yeah, sign me up for that. But it worked. So I have faith in these matchmaking abilities and still own the domain of polarmatch.com, because I think there's a great way we can work together on the scientists all over the world that are interested in working with educators to communicate science. So again, give me a green light on that. Other things that I think would be great if we didn't have to worry about paying the bills would be more of these wonderful opportunities to take teachers to work, as they say, or take them into the field. Because you come back and you inspire generations of people who also go home and tell their parents how important the polar regions are. Some of those parents are policymakers, business leaders. The impact you have is just amazing. So the more opportunities like this we could have, the better. So a green light on more of those would be wonderful too. I know that some of you in this room have also been involved in the Students on Ice activity, or Students on Board. Schools on Board. I always mess that one up. Babies on Board. Yeah, that's for later discussion. Getting these opportunities to actually take students into the field as well. There's a great program at the University of Alaska called Girls on Ice, which specifically tries to take young women out into the field and encourage them to be scientists. So there's some amazing things out there, and I wish we had a lot more green lights for those projects that were proposed. But sometimes we're stuck at a yellow light, and we have to pay those bills. So what are the things that we can do? What are some ideas that are happening now that together SCAR and IASC and APEX and PEI can do? Some low-hanging fruit, as they say. one, I think we need to think about using the currency of science. There's a money theme here. Can you tell? And the currency of science is publications, peer-reviewed literature. And one thing that we can do is work together on more publications that show the importance and the impact of the education that you're doing on training the future generation, not just to be scientists, but to be science literate. And this also helps the scientists put something on their CV that their bosses will count as what's important to science. So peer-reviewed publications are a very important step in this process. SCAR is also working to pull together some of the examples of the best practices of some of the things that our groups are doing, from field schools to just mentoring people one-on-one, to taking photos of Antarctica and making sure policymakers see how amazing it is, and using that opportunity to convince them to join SCAR and to sign the Antarctic Treaty. There's also another example that Jan Strugnell, who is a young female scientist from Australia, came to me with last year. And it's called the Antarctic Wiki Bomb. And I'm not sure how many people use Wikipedia, but I would imagine many of you go to that often. It's well known that there are way more men with biographies on Wikipedia than women, and particularly way more scientists that are male than women. So Jan came to us with this amazing idea to bomb Wikipedia with a ton of biographies about female Antarctic scientists. And with an amazing group of dedicated volunteers from around the world, we pulled together 110 biographies of female researchers in about 7 months. So now there's more female Antarctic researchers on Wikipedia than men. So those are a few examples of the things that are going on, and I think we can replicate those and continue to build on them. There's also some opportunities, I think, in some of the science that SCAR is producing, particularly for policymakers, that you might be able to pick up right now and use in your classroom. There's something that we work on with the New Zealand government in their Antarctic program called the Antarctic Environments Portal. And this is where they take a synthesis of current research and put it into a 2-page summary that's understandable for policymakers. And this wouldn't necessarily be my opinion, but some may also think that kids would probably be able to understand that too at that level. So check that out, because you may be able to take that information right into your classrooms as it is now. There's probably also many other opportunities we can do together to create more science or more student-friendly science information. We can also make sure that we continue to have educators at conferences. This was from a wonderful workshop we had at the IPY conference in Oslo. And then some of the same people show up again in 2016 to help run the education and outreach session at Kuala Lumpur. And sometimes you can even come up with some crazy ideas and convince people to dress up like penguins at their first meeting as the executive director of a major international organization. Thanks, Louise. But one thing I want to particularly talk about with many of you this week is some things that we can do now. So we've started a partnership, thanks to Gary and Louise and many of you in this room as well, of putting in 1 or 2 educational activities into the SCAR newsletter every month. Things that can easily be used by a scientist if they go into a classroom to demonstrate a concept. And we can do more of that. I know that PEI has a ton of those things prepared already, so we can work together to share those with the scientists. And I would like to make this a regular contribution and perhaps a formal partnership at some time in the future between our organizations, so that we can continue to work together to train and motivate scientists to do outreach. But sometimes you don't know what color the light's going to change. And this is my 50 Shades of Gray slide. And you don't know what you're going to do or how it's going to go. And sometimes we can also get frustrated because resources are limited. And we might even want to give up because we just can't find funding for this project, or I don't know what we're going to do. Sometimes people are lucky enough to retire and money doesn't matter anymore. right, Louise? Of course, we can try and convince, insert rich person's name here, that that polar science and education partnerships are the solution to all problems. Another very important thing, and this is crucial, and many of you in this room know this, is that we can use traditional energy sources and solutions. And by this I mean the wonderful volunteer efforts of all of us here, that feeling in the pit of your being that wants you and motivates you to volunteer to do things and go above and beyond. Those are amazing talents and traditional energies that we really need to use. But sometimes we also have to look to the future and think a little bit outside of the box and perhaps use some alternative energies with those traditional energies to come up with some new solutions. And I'm hoping that throughout this week, I'll be able to talk to you guys about what some of those new solutions might be. So where do we go from here? Well, as my dear inspiration from my tent in Antarctica says, even though the light may be yellow, sometimes you just gotta gun it. And if you want to know what that means, you have to ask Louise. So that's kind of my story, as well as some opportunities that I think we can have to work together. I'm very, very glad to be here, not only representing SCAR, but to be here as a former scientist and educator of or wanting to be an educator. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm here all week.
Any questions? Thank you for such an inspiring message. Now I know that I want to be one of big five for someone as a teacher. Yeah. Matteo.
Now it's time for the Apex space, and as mentioned by Jenny, Apex is an association that is a real example for not for only polar teachers, but I think even for teachers and educators that are not polar and not even science, because it's a huge institution and with a very strong sense of community and with a lot of people and scientists and educators are very prone to deal with education and go in school. And as probably you have already seen, on the education side, there are so many challenges to face, and there are so many new innovative ways that we can try and find to inspire students. And as a teacher, I can tell you that sometimes is really very hard, and inspiring students could be a really very demanding work, and we really need example like that one of Jenny, an association like Apex, and educators and scientists that are willing to come in a classroom like Jose did yesterday and explain science to students. And now it's time for Garlis to explain more about Apex. And please.
Sure. Thank you, Matteo. Okay, I'll stay on the cross. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me to speak here at the workshop. It's great. It's the second time that I'm at the PEI workshop, so it's always good to come back. I know there's a lot of people who know a little bit about Apex already. Some of you don't, and so that's why I can give a little bit of a talk what we do as an organization and some of our upcoming activities where you always, also as PEI, can contribute and where we're really wanting you to contribute. And after I'm done, Federico will be talking a little bit about some of the work that our national committee within Italy is doing, although I see a lot of representatives from Brazil and our Indian committee and France committee and Bulgarian committee, so they could answer about some of their work as well. You can talk to them during the coffee break. So APEX is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Technically, Jenny, as always reminds me, has already created it in 2006, at the end of 2006, but we're picking the first big workshop that APEX had in 2007 as the main event, and so that's why we picked the 2017 as our celebratory year. So for those of you who don't know, APEX is an international interdisciplinary organization for early career researchers working in the polar regions and the wider cryosphere. Members are anywhere from undergraduate students to graduate students, early faculty members, but also educators. We do have a lot of educators that are members, and all of you who are interested can become members of the organization. APEX has developed over the years into a very, very big network, worldwide network. This is a map, and it's already outdated again, so I have to update it very soon, of some of our national committees in the countries where we have members currently. Since we have this celebration this year, we actually looked at some of our membership numbers over the years and found that since 2007, there's 7,500 members that the organization had from 101 countries. So that's quite a big number of young people who joined the organization at some stages during their early career. Current membership is 2,468 from 63 countries, so that's the active current membership. APEX is all about volunteers. We wouldn't be able to do all the work that we do without all the very dedicated work that many young researchers and others are doing all over the world. This is just a few of them, essentially. But we also have the great opportunity that we have a directorate, an office that can help coordinate some of these activities. And we're very grateful for a new directorate host, the Alfred Wegener Institute in Potsdam, for hosting us for the next 5 years, and we just moved there. We also have grown as in the secretariat and have now Heike Midlea, who some of you might know from your work with, from her work with IASC, who's now joined APEX 50% as well, and I'm sharing her with Volker and his German Arctic office right now. So this is a really good collaboration as well. So what does APEX do? We do a lot of things. We have a big website. It's called A Beast by some, because it has a lot of resources on it, and we're continuing to fill it with resources. And I'm really inviting you to just have a look at it. There's also a lot of resources that are interested for educators. And so this is really something for you to have a look at and see what you can find there. We create a lot of opportunities with some of the partners that we work with. For young researchers to be involved in committees, in some of the international projects, so that they can gain experience for their later career, be it in research or in non-academic careers. To do that, we work with many partners across the world. There's just a selection of some of the partners that we work with, and of course, PEI is one of the partners that we have, and that we have a memorandum of understanding with for our partnership. We also do a lot of online as well as in-person events for early career researchers, training events, be it webinars, be it workshops, where we teach some of the resources and collect some of our resources. And we also provide opportunities for the young researchers to share their research and to create research partnerships. We just had a very successful conference, Outside the Box, online conference, 18 hours of sessions during the day, 40 young researchers that presented, as well as some keynote speeches. I think 150 people participated during the day. So that was a very successful event. It will happen again next year. So if you're interested in hearing about some of the current research that is going on, this is a free event that you can listen to and that you can join for free at any time, and we'll advertise the next conference again next year so that some of you as educators can also participate. And we actually had also educators present at the conference this year. So this is a really good collaboration as well. But we also do, and this is one of the main pillars that we have, education outreach. Working with schools, working with US educators, why are polar regions and polar research so important? There's several events that we do during the year where we also really want your participation, which is the Polar Weeks. We just had one in March, but there's another one planned in September. And there's, of course, Antarctica Day and other events during the year where we encourage our members to do education outreach activities. And to give you just a little bit of an idea what happened during the Polar Week that just happened in March, this is a little bit of the some of the main events that happened. There was a photo contest with some amazing pictures. These are the winners of this year's photo contests. It was under the theme Polar People. But we also had a great Twitter campaign. We had a Reddit Ask Me Anything session. We had a polar art showcase where some artists actually did send us some of their work, and we have it displayed on the Apex website, as well as a blog about Polar Science 101, breaking down scientific concepts for general audience. So this is really interesting for you, and I'm happy to provide you with the link. It's all up on the Apex website. What are some of our upcoming Apex activities? Apex has been really, it's a great development that Apex is now part of 2 large EU-funded projects, Applicate and Interact, where we will be taking charge of some of the training as well as some of the outreach activities as part of these projects. So this is some big efforts with activities coming over the next 4 years. And I can actually say we're hiring, because we're hiring a person to help us manage the activities that we're doing as part of these projects. Application deadline is on the 5th of May, so it's open and we're looking forward to getting some really good applications for this. We also have a lot of workshops that are coming up. There's one coming up in about a week and a half, 2 weeks in Reston, Virginia, at the AMAP conference, which will be looking a little bit at scientific assessments. How are scientific assessments done? What is the process that goes into that? How is it then communicated to policymakers and others? How can the communication be improved? So this is a great workshop that we're organizing together with IASC and AMAP, as well as several other workshops that are coming up. A highlight, again, next year at the Polar 18 meeting will be the 2nd Apex World Summit that we're planning, and some of the national committee reps that are here, you'll hear soon about this, but we also are, of course, inviting anyone else who wants to attend as well. We also have a lot of online events coming up, a webinar series on cryosphere research specifically, because Apex is not only about polar research, but also about general cryosphere research. So we have now a dedicated alpine research group that is actually organizing a webinar series about high mountain research, and other webinars coming up on communication, on project management, data management, and so on. All of these are free. All of you can attend if you're interested in those, and we're happy to advertise them through PEI. And we have the Apex International Mentorship Award, again, up for nominations currently. As you see, the recipient of the last and the very first inaugural award is sitting actually in the audience, Dave Carlson. But we're now accepting new applications or nominations for this mentorship award. So if you want to nominate a mentor that has been really great in your career, or that we have a second category specifically for Apex, helping with Apex events, think about it. Nomination deadline is on the 28th of May. So there's a little bit of time, and we're hoping to get some really good nominations this year as well. Hard to follow after such a great recipient last year. Apex and PEI. We've been working with PEI for essentially since you've been created. Gary is currently the representative of PEI on our council, and so helping a little bit with the liaison between Apex and PEI. And there's a lot of activities where we really want to work together with. So specifically with our Polar Weeks and Antarctica Day. Think about what you as PEI want to contribute to those events, because we really want to see some contribution from you at the next Polar Week and at the next Antarctica Day. So take this week also to start brainstorming what you want to do. Polar Match. Gary has been trying to start to get this project going, which Jenny already mentioned. So this is where there's a group of us from Apex side who would like to work with it, and we're hoping that with some of you from PEI we can work on this project together and make this a reality. Louise and I have been already mentioning maybe a joint workshop at the Polar 18 conference, and any ideas for other projects that you have. I'm here until Thursday, so I'm happy to discuss that, or afterwards via email or Skype or anything. So if you want to contact us, this is some of the website and our social media. Membership is free. And if you have any questions, let me know. But if not, then I'll pass on to Federico, who will be telling a little bit about what Apex Italy, one of our national committees, is doing. Any questions? Yes, it's Thank you, Jenny. And just to add some of the numbers there, we have actually counted. There was 75% of our leadership since the beginning were female young researchers. And so this is a really, really positive thing for some of the female young scientists. So there's a lot of great talent coming ahead here. And I should mention one specific project actually, or one activity that will be coming up again for Antarctica Day, the Antarctica Day flag activity, where students are painting their vision of Antarctica. And these paintings, these flags, will be then transported to Antarctica by some of the young researchers that are going on field work. So this is again a nice project that you can do with your students where you can contribute. And the planning for that is starting again this summer. So we'll make sure to advertise this again to you so you can contribute with your schools to that activity. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, if there's any more questions, I'm around, so just feel free to contact me.
Thank you. And now next speaker is Federico Dallo, as a representative of Apex Italy. And I hope that some Italian teachers here in the audience will take advantage of his presence here to start to speak about some polar matches in Italy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. And thanks Gerlis and Matteo, and also thanks to Andrea Spolaor, that is my boss, I can say, because I'm not the representative of IPEX Italy. I'm just one of the students that works with Andrea. Andrea now is in the Svalbard, so he cannot be here, and so sent me to speak about IPEX Italy. And we are pretty young, so I hope I'm going to show you something that is useful. Okay. We are not so many now in Italy. We are involved with 4 universities. Here is Padua, Venice, from Ca' Foscari, from where I came from, and University of Napoli Partenope, and Politecnica University of the Marche. And of course, as Gerli says, we have many goals. So first of all, Apex Italy, with especially with Andrea, that now he's coming the chief of the Apex Italy. He's trying to push to build a network. So if you want to involve us, you are well accepted. And this network, of course, has to we need to build a network to exchange information between scientists, so people that are working in the polar science and are involved in cryosphere, and also in the third pole. For example, in Venice, we work especially also in the Alps, and I've done my PhD studying snow and avalanche in the Alps, for example. But not only for the scientists, but also for teachers and also for students. So, for example, students that want to approach these studies and has to find some information, and we can provide with for now, just with a website and some seminars, we can provide the information for them to understand what can do in the future when they go to study. So. And so, of course, we want to promote the polar science in Italy and polar research in Italy. And I can say that Apex is not well known during this day nowadays in Italy, but we are trying to push in this direction too, and also provide a space for dissemination. But mainly, a lot of work just to say that we want to spread knowledge in this field. And so we have this website. So in this website, we can see there's not a lot of information right now because we are not so many, but we are trying to involve more people. And you can see the groups that are working and that are part of the Apex Italy. So here is Padua. We have the Marche University and Napoli, and also, okay, we are interested in publishing in the peer review and in some scientific articles, but this is not only the thing that we want. We just want also to share knowledge, and so we are trying to do something like something new that could interest also the normal people that normally are not involved in polar science. So, for example, during this January, I and Andrea, we went to the Svalbard, and we tried to tell our research in a different way. So we have a panel here where you can find the diaries of the researchers that go, for example, in Arctic or in Antarctica, and try to explain how it is to reach these wild places, how they feel, where they are doing their research. And I think it's very interesting because we reach very important sites. For example, in Ny-Ålesund, we went there, and there is the place where Nobile start their mission for going to the North Pole, and we use some strange stuff to fly above the ice, and we cannot see anything, of course, because we were in the winter time, so there was no light, and you can see Ny-Ålesund, so you cannot see Ny-Ålesund. And we work in a very harsh environment, but of course we can see also the beauty of these places, and so, for example, the Aurora Borealis, something like that. So maybe if we want to share our knowledge, not only with the high-level scientists, we can also try to share our adventures when we are doing research in fields. And we try in this writing this diary, and this diary has it was appreciated in Venice, in the mainland, and where I came from, near Belluno, that is the province near Trento, and now we are also writing these diaries in a real book for the with editor. So this is just an idea how to spread knowledge in the polar science, because maybe you are doing a lot of research in a very far place in the world, and I think it's also to make the beauty of these places useful for the other is very important. So yeah, also share story behind our research. And so if you want to have more information, or if you want to join us with your ideas or with your actual studies, if you want to participate, you're welcome. So thank you very much. Hope you appreciate the presentation. Very simple one. So thank you. Yeah, and also I didn't mention it, but we are preparing an event in September, is the Venice Climate Lab, because we just started last year working with Apex, me and Andrea. So things are building up, we have this event in September, and in 10 days we will put all the information in the Apex site. So if you want to stay in touch, it will be a very nice event, I think, with a lot of students from the University of Ca' Foscari doing baskers and something like that. So maybe it will be nice.
Any question? No? Just a second, because we are streaming.
I'm wondering about research institute like ours, for example. We are from OGS. Why they are not listed in your list of institution involved? Is there anybody in the Apex from Italy, from OGS, or from INGV, or from CNR?
I think that this question maybe I have to ask Andrea. I'm sorry for that, because I was sent here a few days ago, so he's in Svalbard, so I don't have many way to communicate with him. So yeah, for sure, we are many more than the people that are nowadays in the website, but maybe they don't write to Andrea or to me or to Francois that we are working on the website. So maybe it's just that you have to write us, and we will put everything of your information, of your research in the web page. So I just put the people that now are involved in the website. So probably it's just a matter that you, Andrea, you don't.
Yeah, sure. Okay, it's just a matter of networking,
exactly.
I guess, better communication. I also want to let everybody that this year, in September, there will be a big conference in Trieste from the SCAR program of Geoscience PAIS, Past Antarctic Ice Sheet Dynamics. And we have rooms for workshops. There is no anything to pay, we just have room. So you have to submit your request, ask what you want to do, how many chairs you need, and so there might be a good opportunity for Apex and all sort of networking if you like to get this opportunity. It's fully open. There is a website. We'll talk about this tomorrow, but just in case someone has to leave today, take a note of your agenda. It's from September 10 to 15 in Trieste, Italy, northeast to Italy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other question? Oh, sorry. No, because we are in stream.
Okay, sorry. We do have our brand new Apex brochures here, as well as some of the Apex pins. So if you want some more information, you can also pick up some of these. And yes, of course, this would be a great opportunity for, especially our Apex Italy, to organize a workshop here at the PACE conference. So I think we'll definitely be in touch with the Apex Italy committee and with you to organize something there.
Thank you. Now should be coffee break time. No? Ah, Gary.
So you all got a card if you were on time this morning. If you didn't, you need to see me before coffee break. I'll be right here. But in the card, you need to look at your card. I'm a king. I need to find at least one other king. Of course, I'm the king. Yeah, one other king in the room during the coffee break and introduce myself. It's a way that we can mix up a little bit during the coffee break. So,
A polar match.
polar match. This was left last night at the icebreaker. There happens to be 50 people walking around with them. You might put your name in it, on it, and we can return it. But we found its owner. All right, very good. So we're a little early, but we will start right on time.
Yes, so half an hour of coffee break as was scheduled. So
11:30.
No.
Just
No,
30
just
minutes from now.
yeah, it's better to finish early.
What time is it right now?
Yeah.
Okay, add 30 minutes from 10:24, and then be back.
So at 11, okay? So
And the coffee
do
is where?
here or downstairs?
Downstairs or down the hall, and we do have exhibitors that are down the hall.
Okay. So yes, also you can visit the exhibitor area. Everywhere you see. Adesso lo faccio. No, lo faccio. Excuse me, everybody, I just got this news that because we are early on the program, the coffee break is not ready. So, Matteo. So, andiamo avanti col programma e lo facciamo, che facciamo? Andiamo avanti col programma e lo facciamo dopo? Ah, ok, so okay. So we are going to start again at 11:30 as in the program. Please spread the news outside. Just spread the news. Thank you. Ciao, Dan. Vieni qua un attimo. Non ti sento perché c'è il rumore. Ok, quindi funziona adesso? Ok, con la sua proprio. In 4 minutes, we are starting again. 4.
Button. All right, I hope you found your match. It was our first experience at Polar Match. Yes? I saw some good conversations. I do remind you that today and tomorrow, the exhibit area is at the end of the hall. So please make your way there and visit the exhibitors that are there. I know many of you made it that way. After lunch today, and lunch, we will go. You need to go to lunch with your stuff, go. And then you'll eat lunch, and then we have to go even farther that direction. So when we say it's time, it really is time. And we'll start on time at the school. Your card, you are either black or red. In the afternoon, you're in the red group or the black group. And those are the two groups, 1 and 2. Black will be 1, red will be 2. And so in the program, you know where you're going for your sessions in the afternoon. Okay? And save your card for tomorrow, too. All right?
Thank you, Gary. So now Inga is going to present you an activity.
Hello, everybody. I just have to announce something really shortly. Are you okay? No comment from him. No, like during the last PEI workshop, we're gonna have a raffle, a tombola again this time. It's sponsored again from Students on Ice, what we heard already today, and from ARBI, so the Alfred Wegener Institute for Polar Research. And we're going to sell the tickets during every break, during the coffee breaks and lunch breaks. It's €1.50 one ticket and €2 two tickets. And we're going to use the money for the travel costs for participants and organizers and for the next polar workshop if there's something left over. We have a main prize again, like last time. It's again this nice down vest from Students on Ice. And all the prizes will be, or you can get all the prizes during dinner time tomorrow night. And I hope all of you, we only have 200 tickets. Last time, I think we sold all of them, so yeah. And thank you already now for buying the tickets, and I hope we have a really happy winner at the end of the 3 days. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Inga. So now some information. Once we finish this session, we are going to have the lunch, and Sebastiano, just a sec, he disappeared. Okay, here's Sebastiano. He's going to walk you to the place, so you should follow him. Sebastiano is here, and so he's going to take you to the pizzeria. The lunch is kindly offered by PEI. Yeah, PEI, okay. And if you have some guests, the guests should pay for the lunch. The participant can use one ticket, the yellow ticket you have in your, your bag. And, okay, then, if you have to put a poster at the school, we are waiting for you at the school at 1:45, and also for the hands-on activity. So the people that have a hands-on activity or a poster are waited at the school at 1:45. It's okay? Any question about the organization? And everything is showed in the map. In this little brochure, you can find a map of the huge town of Rovereto. So I think that is going to help a lot. Once you finish to eat, you have to go to the school, not here. But Sebastiano maybe can help you. Thank you, Sebastiano. And now Matteo Cattadori. It's your turn.
Okay. Let me introduce Dr. Caccia, that is coming from Genoa, and it's a pleasure for us to talk about this topic that is quite new for PEI workshop, because we didn't talk about robotics ever, and here in Italy we have an excellent group that is working on this in Polar region, and as you might be already aware, even robotics is a very well used topic in schools, no? To like First Legal League that is hosted in Italy, for instance. So there are several interesting connections between education and science. Again, thank you, Dr. Caccia.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And what I'm going to shortly introduce you is are some applications of robotics in Antarctica and Arctic regions. They are remote regions with harsh environment, very difficult to access by people, and so it's a typical fine environment for robotics. And this is a brief summary of a very long story. It started about 25 years ago with Gianmarco Verruggio in the former Institute of Ship Automation of Italian National Research Council in Italy. And the first mission to Antarctica with a remotely operated vehicle, that is a tethered vehicle that can work underwater, and this is teleoperated in Antarctica, was in the Italian expedition in 93-94. And the first prototype vehicle was Roby. It was employed for a first exploration of under ice, also below the under ice pack, in the area of Ross Sea, close to the Italian station of Terranova Bay, now called Mario Zucchelli, in honor of the pioneer of Italian expeditions to Antarctica. And since our first missions there, we could understand that there was a kind of good relationships between robots and the Antarctic environment. Robots were very interested for seals. We operated from holes in the ice pack, and the seals usually came to the holes to see what the robot was, very interested in it. They stayed there for a lot of time. And sometimes also we had to switch off the robot and recover it by hands because of the presence of our friends there that they didn't want to move. They were also very interested, as you can see in that photograph, to the tether, and sometimes they also bite it. But okay, it was funny. And here we can have a short view of how to operate. In the top right, we see images from the campaign of 97-98, when we operated from an ice tent mounted on the ice pack and from a ship. The Malipo, that is the boat, support boat that is used in Antarctica, in the Italian Bay. On the top left, instead, in 2003, we substituted the tent with some containers, and the operated station on the ice pack was more comfortable and also especially more safe. And the vehicles were used for basically in the first phase to see what there is under the ice pack and on the Antarctic seafloor, because the divers can operate them, but it is very, very dangerous. Sometimes there were also terrible accidents. And in any case, they can stay there only for a few minutes, 15, 30, and at depths that are not so high. So we can explore just already in 93 and then in 97, and to monitor and to collect images and having an idea of the habitat in this area. Also support, and the work was used for supporting the specially protected area of Terranova Bay, this ASPA region that was approved last year. And we, as you can see, there is a lot of life below the ice and below the sea in Antarctica. On the top left, we saw something that was more interesting from the point of view of robotics and technology. Because in that case, we mounted below the ROV a small benthic chamber. And so the tools that below the ROV was released on the sea bottom, and in a place that the marine scientists could choose, because piloting the ROV could say, okay, this is the right place, and we can deploy the benthic chamber here. We mounted an acoustic transponder on board the benthic chamber, and 24 years later, no, not years, hours later, we could go there. We see the benthic chamber released on the bottom now, and we went again there with the Romeo ROV and could recover the benthic chamber. It was done for 10 times during that mission, and the frame of the benthic chamber is actually in our lab, so it works many times and successfully. So then, in 2013, we used mini ROVs, in that case commercial. We'll see that according to that experience now we are developing new robots for observing the below surface of the ice pack, for looking for larvae and eggs of Antarctic silverfish. But this is another story, and we'll see it better later. 2004, we were the first to surface vehicles in Antarctica. Now, there is no volume of the video, okay? And, it was equipped with a Harvey-like cylinder to sample the sea surface microlayer. And in that case, the hull was painted with epoxidic resina in order to avoid to release also inorganic material, because the samples collected were interested both for scientists interested in organic and inorganic materials. And we sampled in that case, we sampled the sea surface microlayer and in separated way under immediate subsurface. It was very interesting because in that picture you can see pre-filtered water, on the left in sea surface microlayer, on the right in immediate subsurface at 30 centimeters. So the concentration of particles in that very thin film is also 1,000 times what you can find 20, 30 centimeters below. So it is very important when you look for a particle of 1 million to sample the sea surface microlayer. I couldn't believe that, because I said, okay, this is the typical things of scientists that say, oh, we want exceptional precision. But when I saw that pre-processing, I said, okay, it is something very useful and very special. So in 2003, we made some experiments for piloting, remotely operating through internet, the ROV in Antarctica and the Svalbard Islands through satellites and internet communication. We made it in Antarctica and also in Svalbard, in the Kongsfjord. In that case, it was more interesting because in Antarctica, we had only one position for remote operation in CNR in Rome. In that case, we had the 3 positions, one in Scotland, one in Genova, and one in Naples. And they could teleoperate the vehicle that was deployed from the farm. We see in the Kongsfjord, in the top right, there were images of taken from the ROV that are what they could see on that deep wall, basically, that we can found there. Then, a couple of years ago. And in that case, the goal was to sample air, water, and underwater very close to a wall of a glacier in Svalbard. It is very interesting to sample there because it is the ice, air, water interface. To have data there, it is a place of border, and it could be useful for initializing models for climate change and so on. But it is very, human cannot go there because it is too dangerous, because if the ice breaks, you die. So we did that with a semi-submersible vehicle. This is the test day. It was deployed, and we had this, you know, one of that guys, it's Zezo. And we have the camera mounted on the semi-submersible vehicle. You can see the vehicle that is in the showroom, in the other room. And so we could approach the ice wall with the vehicle. And that was the mission day. It was something very interesting for the people there, because they could teleoperate the vehicle through these ice blocks till reaching the ice wall. And we could sample the sea surface and also take some bottles of water under the surface in contact with the ice wall. We have not images, but when my colleagues came back, they saw that that wall of the glacier broke. So they had a demonstration that robotics could be very useful in some particular situations. And it was very touching to have to have the vehicle just in contact with the ice wall and to be able to go there. And in 2012 and 13, we made a special experiment in Antarctica because we left a pole in the ice pack for 1 year with cameras and sensors to see what happens below the ice pack during the whole years, here to study what happens there, the formation of platelet ice and the deposition of eggs and larvae of Antarctic silverfish. And the idea is to try to develop technology that could be portable, also in remote size with helicopter, and they can be deployed, making holes in the ice pack with that device that can be used by man and doesn't require machines. So we had a wind generator to cooperate with batteries for power supply during all the winter and Antarctic winter, and we left here it for 1 year. We studied to leave it in a place where the ice usually doesn't break, but Murphy's laws exist, and it broke the ice pack, and so all the system shift during 1 year with the ice. These are when we deployed with mini ROV, we could see what happened there and to have a view of the system first year when it was released. Then, as I said before, it drifted for 21 kilometers, and then it was recovered by Edoardo Spirandelli, and then people could recover it. Maybe we can have a witness of that. What happened there?
Oh, it's a secret. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, actually it was difficult to find the device because, as you just said, it moved during the year. Then when we found the device, we spent 1 day trying to extract from the sea ice. And I remember that day because it was, for me, I was there with the scientists and with also the people of the army that in Italy support the scientists in their work on the sea ice. And it was like a fight against the sea ice, and that day the sea ice won. So the very first day we were there all day long. We were destroyed. I also helped with many tools trying to extract the device, but we were not able to do it. And then 2 days later, we came back with many people, many other tools, and at the end of the day, we finally extracted.
Thank you for your help. And I remember. Wow, great. And I remember Edoardo said, okay, we found it. And then each day, okay, but the ice is too hard. We cannot break it. We are very far from the station and so on. And but at the end, we learned a lot. And we worked during that mission also with mini ROV. But all these missions, that there is a need of portable modular robots. And so the challenge is to design and develop a family of manned marine vehicles based on robotic bricks that can be combined at field to configure different systems. Our idea is pop art. So we have a vehicle. We start from the vehicle P2ROV that we developed. It is a kind of open frame torpedo-like vehicle, a kind of with a diameter of 35 centimeters. This is a very hard constraint because it is the diameter of the hole that you can make in the ice pack using handable devices. So we start from the vehicle P2ROV on the top right, but if we change the configuration of the thrusters, it is tethered, and so power is also supplied through the cable, but we can disconnect the cable, put batteries below, foam, wireless, and GPS on the top. We have a semi-submersible vehicle. And then, if we have two semi-submersible vehicles connected by a frame, we have a catamaran. All the pieces are handable. And the first two vehicles, the underwater and the semi-submersible vehicles, it is possible to deploy and recover them from a small boat by people without using a crane, because the weight is not too high, 40, 60 kilos. So two people can do that. So this is basically the idea, a short animation of that. And you see the first vehicle, then we mount other pieces, and so on. And we are going to use until the ROV and semi-submersible vehicle next July in Svalbard Island to have, during the same mission, the vehicle operating during the same day, exit at sea. The vehicle operating underwater as an ROV, then we plan to recover it, to add the batteries and foam, and then to go to make a mission as the one we saw before with a friend that is in the other room. So this is P2ROV, short view of the vehicle. For more technical details, we are available here later for giving them to you. Preliminary trials in water of the vehicle. It is maneuvers very well, and so on. And what's going on in our lab? We have now all the hardware is basically ready for mounting it and shipping it to Svalbard Islands. So I don't know. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions.
So this question's probably for you and Dave. What kind of potential is there for using technology like your persistent one that was under the ice for a year to get some of that data understanding the ice melt that they don't have in that water budget for Antarctica?
I didn't
So Dave talked earlier about trying to get an idea of how much water is melting underneath the Antarctic ice shelf, and what kind of, can you perceive using this kind of technology, like that 1 year thing you had out there, persistent thing, to get some of that kind of data?
To make it more persistent in the years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the system could work there. So, but for that, there would be, I think that from a technological point of view, we can manage it, because we demonstrate what the result was that the system worked, and it worked the wind generator. Under the ice, so it was possible to have energy, to collect energy, and maybe you can recover it, change batteries for 1 year. How deep we can go with the vehicles? The vehicles, okay, with Romeo, the ROV is rated 500 meters, the old one, and the record in Antarctica was around 400, something like that. We tested all the vehicles, all the components of the vehicles. We have a pressure chamber in the lab, so we tested every component until 50 atmospheres. But the problem is basically maneuvering the vehicle, because there is a tether. The tether is 600 meters long, and when you have the tether at sea, there is drag from the tether, so until 250, 300 meters, you can maneuver it very well. Then just a bit less, but we reached 420 meters. But basically there is nothing. So it is more interesting to work between 0 and 100 meters, where there is more fauna and so on. And especially it is quite interesting to work with this Antarctic silverfish, because it is basically the base of it is at the center of the food chain, and it is not known until now which are the mechanisms of reproduction. Because, for instance, you find in the plateletized eggs and larvae, but you don't know when the fishes go there for reproduction. Marino Vacchi, probably he will be tomorrow here, and you can ask him for the scientific part, because we work with him, we provide the technology, but he's a very great aspect of Antarctic silverfish. So.
Any other question? I have a question.
Oh.
Because now you have 1 year recorded images from the subsea camera. So how, so did you provide this material to the scientists, or you are studying? Are you studying
the quality
this
of the
material?
images was, so it worked from a technological point of view, but we didn't found a lot of things in that. Probably because of the drift and so on. So many times it is basically blue, sometimes some group of fishes.
Okay.
Marino look at, watch them, but
so did you already
probably
study the material? So 1 year recorded
1 year, yes.
images?
We have 1 year of, and Marino look at, watch them.
Ah, okay. So Marino Vacchi is
Marino
in
Vacchi, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So you were an educator on this? So my question to you was, what was the value in having an educator? He didn't. He never discovered you were the teacher. So was there?
We met for the first time today.
Today.
Yeah, and I discovered that she was there with my colleague to recover.
During the recovery. Okay.
Yes, Antarctic is a very small world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now, I have to explain that the next speaker, I would like to introduce her, and it's a great pleasure for me, because here today we have 15 different nations, people coming from 15 different countries. And as you can imagine, more or less, each of us is struggling with language, no? And especially me. And, and there is a constant threat for all of us. It's about language. So we just mentioned of science, we mentioned about education, and there are two huge challenges. And there is a third challenge that is related to language. So I love PEI Association because it has a very inclusive mode and very inclusive, I would say, model of including people from different countries. But it's always really very, very hard to speak in English, and it's really very hard to understand people speaking in English. And these scientists devoted many years studying these processes and how languages affect communication, education, and science. Sandra Zicus.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks, Matteo. That's a very generous introduction. I'm really happy to be here and be able to talk with everyone today. I've already heard some great examples from other people about projects that you've done, and I'm looking forward to learning more about those as the workshop goes on. I'm going to focus on the international part of polar education. So I want to give a few examples of some potential ways to link students around the globe, and then look at the specific issue of language and how that fits into the process. How do I get this to work? Am I going the wrong way? No. Oh. You have to turn it on first. Okay. The first question you might ask is, why should I put all that time and effort into involving students from another country, another language, another culture, when I'm trying to teach about the polar regions? And I think that there's two main reasons for this. One of them is that it helps them understand the global environmental connections and how local actions can have an impact on other people and other places. It also helps them to develop those intercultural communication skills that are essential for solving global problems. So I'll give you three short examples of some ways that this can be done. As I said, many of you have your own examples that I'd like to learn about. Icy Mystery was a collaboration between Australian and Alaskan primary schools. The Long Night Survey education program was between schools in France and Greenland. And Sharing Our Planet was a multi-nation project involving 4 different countries. So, Icy Mystery. Icy Mystery was an IPY project that was coordinated by the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, and it paired 12 Australian primary classes with 12 classes in Alaska. This included some remote schools, Bruny Island in Tasmania and Point Barrow in Alaska, with Indigenous students. And the project combined literature, science, and art. Because the classes were told to create a mystery story involving polar science, and they had to work collaboratively to do this. The students in Tasmania and Queensland focused mostly on the Antarctic, while the students in Alaska focused on the Arctic. And I have to give credit to our major funders as well. So at the start of the project, we held 2 teacher workshops, one in Fairbanks, Alaska, and one in Hobart, Tasmania, where the teachers got information about polar science and resources to use, and we discussed project methodology. How are we going to do this? We also recruited, went too far. We also recruited some postgraduate students from the University of Tasmania who served as science mentors or advisors, answered technical questions or scientific questions from the students and the teachers. Out of the 12 pairs of classes, 10 of them completed their books. And if you're interested, you can see the books on this website listed here. 6 months after we finished the project, we surveyed the teachers, and most of them indicated that they felt their students had learned a lot about polar science during the project. They also had some very positive comments. They said that the students were more willing to do written work and were more interested in other cultures. One teacher said that they paid a lot more attention to the news whenever Antarctica or Alaska were mentioned. And another one said that his students felt empowered because their research was driven by their own need rather than something that he had set up for them to do. The second project I'd like to talk about is the Long Night Survey of 2012-2013 was a scientific research project, and a young French polar researcher, Pascaline Bourgan, was involved in this, and she decided that she wanted to have an education project with it. So she developed this education project. And she had slightly different objectives for each of the countries, but the linking one was that cultural communication, learning about each other. Before going to Greenland, she did a number of workshops with students in France. She did similar things with the students in Greenland. And I want to point out that she used a lot of activities from the Polar Resource book that we've been talking about. So that book is being used. The students also connected through Skype video calls and through regular old-fashioned snail mail. And one of the products that came out of this, one of the results, was a book again. This one was written by the French students in French and was illustrated by both the French and the Greenlandic students, where they're looking at the two animals there on the right are Tit-Louis and Tornak. They were the mascots. So their adventures in Greenland formed the basis of this book. The last one example that I want to give is a project that was very important to me. It developed out of my participation with the Education and Outreach Committee during IPY. And after the IPY program officially ended, a small group of us decided to form a project to link students in 4 countries: Greenland, Brazil, Chile, and Malaysia. So we had students exploring their environments from 64 degrees north latitude in Greenland to 53 degrees south latitude in southern Chile. There were 5 languages involved in this project: Greenlandic and Danish in Greenland, Portuguese in Brazil, Spanish in Chile, and Malay in Malaysia. We had 3 broad project goals for this. First of all, we wanted to have the students understand their local environment better, but also to be able to identify local and global relations. And then we wanted them to think about ways to work towards solutions of these problems. The second one was more about social responsibility. What are your roles and responsibilities in a global society? And lastly, we wanted them to help develop their interpersonal skills, linguistic skills, computer technology skills, intercultural skills. This is how it worked. At the start of the project, the schools created short videos about their school and about their local environment. And they shared these with the other schools. After watching the videos, the teachers asked them, make a list of questions. What do you want to ask the students in the other countries? And also, what do you want them to know about you and how you live? To get into the environmental science part of it, we created a series of focus questions. And we translated these questions into all of the native languages so they could do their first scientific investigation in their native language. This was very important. The beginning one, first stage, was just getting to know each other. What's the weather like where you are? What kind of climate do you have? What natural resources are there? Secondly, they investigated a local problem. We chose pollution because it was common to all of them. Then we wanted to make global connections, so they studied climate change and its possible impacts on their region. And finally, we wanted to look at how do you share your knowledge? What activities are you doing? Let's talk about it. So the focus questions guided the students through the initial research in their native language, in the field, in the classrooms. And then they shared what they learned with the other schools in English using a variety of technologies. A lot of it was done through Edmodo. I think most of you are probably familiar with this. It's something that looks and works very much like Facebook, but it's created for educators. And we also used email and some video conferences with varying degrees of success. So some results. Not everything worked, of course, it never does, but we did notice some very positive results. One thing is that both the students and the teachers increased their knowledge of their own local ecosystem. For example, in Greenland, the students wanted to put a picture of an iceberg in their post. So we suggested to them, okay, you better tell the other students, what is an iceberg? Because people in Brazil or Malaysia, they're not going to know. And it turned out that the students in Greenland didn't know either. They knew it was frozen water, but they thought it was just the surface of the ocean freezing, even though they have icebergs out in the local fjord during the winter all the time. There was also some practical information shared between southern Chile and Greenland Punta Arenas in southern Chile and Greenland both have very strong winds sometimes. So the Chilean students said, in our town, they put up guide ropes for people to hold on to during storm when they're walking in town. Right after they posted that, a fourth grade student in Greenland was injured when she was blown over by the wind when she was getting off the school bus. So the school now puts up ropes from the door to the bus stop on windy days. Also, the Greenland students decided that they wanted to do a rather expensive field trip. So they started raising money through bake sales, shoveling snow, posing in native costume for photos when cruise ships came in. And 2 years later, they traveled to Malaysia for 2 weeks and met with their Malaysian colleagues. I want to point out that this was not part of the project plan. This was something the students came up with. They wanted to do it, and they worked on it for 2 years to raise the money. They also created and filmed and narrated a documentary that aired on Greenland Public Television. In fact, it aired for a second time just about a month ago. Challenges. You're probably familiar with these, especially the first two. We all have challenges with time and resources. I want to focus on the specific challenge of languages. With Icy Mystery, it wasn't a problem because most of the students were native English speakers in both Alaska and Australia. However, if you want to work with students from other countries where they don't speak the same language, then you have to find some way of bridging that language gap. So I have some suggestions that have come from researchers, from students, and from teachers who've been involved in these projects. It starts with engagement. You have to get the students interested. So make it personal. They want to know each other as people first before they're really interested in sharing science knowledge. You can focus on similarities too. Pascaline's project, she said that when she was doing a Skype video call, the students got very excited because one student was wearing a t-shirt with the name of a popular band. And the students on both sides liked this popular music and this song, and they ended up dancing together in France and Greenland at the same time during the call. Start the studies in native languages. I think this is a very important key because that way you involve the students in the research, in the science, without them worrying about, oh, I have to do it in English. I have to worry about another language. You also need support. So try and develop a strong local network. Involve the parents, involve the community. There are great resources. And there are a lot of people out there who are willing to help, but you have to ask them. You have to let them know that you need them. And they can be very helpful with language issues. The other one is to use peer support. You generally have a few students who have stronger language skills than the rest of the class, or who are more willing to take the risk to do a presentation on a video conference in English, or to write something in English to post on it. So those students can help the other students, and we saw this with the students in Greenland all the time. They loved it. They loved helping each other. Finally, remember that your goal is to reach mutual understanding, however you do it. So you need to start by being aware that, yeah, there is a cultural difference, there is a language difference, and we're going to have to work at it. It might not be easy, but we know it's there. We're willing to try. So if you don't understand something, ask. Ask for clarification. This is interesting. It's come out in a lot of research that we're often afraid to do that because we feel like, oh, I don't want to look stupid and say I don't understand. But if we've already agreed, yes, we have language differences, we have cultural differences, we can feel free to ask each other. Don't be afraid to mix languages. We usually understand more than we can speak. So if you're not comfortable in speaking in English, you want to speak in French, but you understand English, and the person you're talking to understands French but doesn't want to speak it, you can still communicate just using the mixed languages. Communication doesn't have to be verbal. You can communicate a lot through music and art. And Pascaline found that with her students. They were very young. They had very low language skills. So they did a lot of their communication through artwork, as they did when they did the book. Online translation tools can be very helpful. And we saw this in one of our teachers in Sharing Our Planet in Chile did not speak any English at all. So she communicated with Melissa Hansen, the teacher in Greenland. She would just write to Melissa in Spanish. Melissa took it, put it in Google Translate, could kind of understand it, responded back in English. Teresita would do the same thing, translate it back into Spanish. And if they didn't understand what was being said, they'd send another email and ask a question. So to sum, there's three major challenges that we saw in languages. One of them was the teacher's fears of trying to do something in another language. The kids usually don't have a problem. It's more us. We are more apt to worry about whether or not we can communicate in that language. There is a lack of materials in native languages often, especially if you want to work with the same materials in different countries at the same time. So you need the same materials in multiple languages. And as we know, most research is done, scientific research is done in English. So obviously, more translation is needed. This is nothing new. We've been discussing this for years. Trying to translate science for education use is not simple. As we said, most published research is being done in English, scientific English. So first, we need to translate that into public English so that it can be understood by the general population. In non-English speaking countries, it's even more complex because there we have to transfer it into scientific language in the native language, and then into public native languages before it can be used by the public. As we said, we don't have a lot of these resources, time and money, that we need for this. So some other issues of translation, it's not a straightforward, simple process. First of all, you translators need to have expertise in both the languages and in the subjects. So in this case, science and education. Sometimes there's a lack of equivalent words, so it's hard to translate. English copes with this by, we take a word and just bring it into English and make it part of the language. But in languages like Greenlandic, that's not as easy to do because it's structured so differently. The thought process is different. So the teachers in Malaysia and in Greenland told me that they often do most of their science teaching in either Danish in Greenland or English in Malaysia because they couldn't make sense of it when they translated it. And another one is that a lot of researchers have trouble explaining their science in their native language because they've done all their research in English. So they're more comfortable with the English versions of it. So I've been thinking about this, and I've got one suggestion for a possible approach. This is just a rough outline. I'd like to get your feedback on what you think, if this is possible. Say we have an English language activity, and we want to translate that into Spanish. So first we put it into, we converted to Spanish using an online translator. Then we have a Spanish-speaking teacher look at that translation and see if it makes sense, or fix up the grammar a little bit or the word order, things like that. Then post it on a dedicated web page that's password protected. There, we would ask Spanish-speaking scientist volunteers to review it for scientific accuracy. Does it still make sense scientifically? And revise it where needed. And after review, the translated activity could be posted on a PEI public access web page. Now, the obvious question here is, where are these teachers and where are these scientists who will do this? Well, we have a great opportunity here. We have you and other PEI members on the education side. And then, as Jenny said earlier today, we have a lot of scientists in groups like APEX and SCAR and IASC that surely we can find some who are willing to volunteer a little time to review some of these things like that. So the idea behind this is that if we divide the task and we combine our knowledge, we may be able to go quite a long ways with something like that. So if any of you are interested in this and want to talk with me later, I would love to explore this idea further. So as a wrap up, some of the keys to success that we found. First of all, don't be afraid to try. Not everything will work, but you can be amazed at where things will go. Kids love this, so channel that enthusiasm. Once you get them engaged, they can really run with it. Involve the parents and the local community as much as you can. And the final one that's been mentioned before, the most important factor in the success of these programs are passionate volunteers. Without people like Pascaline and Melissa and many others, too many to list here, none of these projects would have been able to happen. One final thought. Research by the British Council in 2014 found that 1 billion people, more than 1 billion people around the globe are actively studying English as foreign or second language. And they predict that to almost double by 2020. So this is my question. Is there an opportunity here for polar education? That's it. Thank you for listening.
We already have a question.
Thanks, Sandy. It's so important to have somebody looking at these issues for us. During IPY, we did these translations of the little flyers for the polar days, and we sort of followed your sequence of volunteer translator, expert review, but we were always in a hurry, so we never did the whole sequence. But it would be interesting to go back to those and see if, see what the fidelity is from the original. My second comment is, as the source of many of those, you turn yourself into a better writer in your native language if you know what issues are going to come up in translation. But I think my main issue is actually to say I'm not so confident about English. I think in some fields of science, more papers are published in Chinese today than they are published in English. We're running this conference in English. I run an English journal, but I think we're missing a larger global trend if we don't recognize that there's another language that in the science literature, and especially in the earth science literature, is likely to be a competitor for English.
I think that's right, Dave. On the last one, the idea of translation, I used an example of English to something else, but it could easily be from another language if it's something important into English or other languages. It's true, it is a similar process that I outlined here to what we did in IPY. I think the difference is that I'm suggesting we start with online translation tools because they can cut a lot of the work out at the beginning to get you the general idea of what you're trying to say. And then continue to follow that process where you're using volunteers to refine it.
Any other questions? Oh. The president first.
This is an excellent opportunity for PEI to ask you all. You are all invited to become more active in our organization. PEI becomes from a dream of a group of people, as you know, and we are all volunteers. So if you want to grow up a little bit more, we need you, for sure. So in the next days, PEI, the applications for council members in PEI will be open. So we expect you take a step forward and apply for that because it will be very, very useful for Polar Educators International. So please think about that.
And now the former president.
Which makes it interesting because my comments were, the president sitting in the room, our comments all went to the same thought. Every project idea starts from a member, and they say, this is my project that I would be interested in doing. And the people who are on PEI Council work to help you find teachers around the world that are also interested in this type of project. And you come together and you create the project and work on it. And then the officers try to help you in ways that you might need. So if this is a project, as Sandra's talked about, you're like, I think I want to be involved or at least be in conversation with her, this week is the time to do that. She's here, you're here, have that conversation.
Louise? The former, yes.
I would like to make a suggestion to our executive committee, who are almost all here this week, and that is that perhaps we need a sixth working group. Languages and international languages and translations has been an issue from the very beginning, and like Dave said, an issue from IPY. So maybe what we need is from the executive committee and the council to set up another working group that would work on this. And Jose had said, well, there's so many resources, where do you start? And I would suggest that maybe we start with the activities that we are sending to Jenny each month to SCAR. And those activities are written in a form that we can take them, put them through the translator, and come up with, how many countries did you say, 15? 15 different languages, and you're sitting right here, so we could do that. And I would like to make that suggestion to our council and our executive committee to maybe consider that.
Thanks. I just want to point out this wonderful little resource that was created out of this Antarctica Day flag activity. It's called Celebrating Antarctica. It's a book highlighting some of these flags that have been drawn, as well as some explanations about the Antarctic Treaty. And this was first produced in English, and then several of our APEX members have helped the producers of the book to translate this into, I think it's now in 18 different languages, and it's freely available online, so you can download. So it's a very nice little resource as well, where this actually worked, where some of the APEX members helped to translate this resource, so it's available in other languages as well.
Thank you very much. Just a second.
Thank you. In Germany, we have nice sources for teaching material, but it's only in German. So is there someone in the room who tries to translate some of these teaching materials. I have a lot of those which you cannot find in any other language. So this is a very concrete question to you. Feel fine to contact me if you have an idea.
So the resource that Gerlis is talking about, we just posted a link to it on our Twitter feed this morning, so you guys can find it there too.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. So now we should go to have lunch, but before we are going to do the group picture of the workshop right on the stair in front of the building. So, yeah, unless you have to put the poster or the hands-on activity, so 1:45. Yeah.
And please double check the list of the speakers of today, because we are going to do some change. But please give a look to the list.